Hello, statistics and pre-calculus. Welcome to your bonus video that none of you probably asked for, which is where we're going to be finding rational solutions of polynomial functions the old school way. By that I mean that we're not going to use a graph to kind of cheat and give us a head start. Instead, we're going to have to do this the long way around. So we're going to start with, come on computer, you got this, bud. Oops, we're jumping ahead. All right, our function. X cubed plus 2x squared minus 19x minus 20. Now, the other way we did it, we would have popped up a graph and maybe gotten a head start and seen maybe one of our x-intercepts was 15, probably not, but maybe we saw that 15 was one of them. And from there, we kind of used that to find the rest of our zeros. Not this time. We're not going to look at the graph at all, so we're doing this total old-fashioned way. So we have to think back to our rational zero theorem, which says that all of our possible zeros are going to be basically the factors of 20 divided by the factors of x cubed, or the coefficient in front of x cubed. So luckily our leading coefficient here is a nice 1, which means we're going to have whole number zeros, right? Because we're either going to be dividing by positive or negative 1. So the only thing we have to worry about is our 20. So let's get started. Possible factors of 20. 20 and 1, 10 and 2, 5 and 4. So again, because our leading coefficient is 1, we end up with our possible zeros being x maybe equals plus or minus 20, plus or minus 10, plus or minus 5, plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4. And that is a lot of possible numbers, let me tell you. That is 6 times 2, so that is 12 possible numbers. So that is going to be a lot of work, isn't it? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so let's just get started. So basically what you're going to do is start with any one of these numbers and start checking to see if they could be a 0. The way you're going to do that is using our lovely substitution division. So I'm going to start with 1 because that's the easiest number to work with. So let's say that I think one of my zeros is 1. So again, that means I'm saying that x minus 1 is one of my factors. And that means that a equals 1. So we'll do the 1. We'll pull all of our coefficients down. And I'll note that in this case, we don't have any zeros that are needed. So our coefficients are in fact 1, 2, negative 19, and negative 20. So to get started, sorry, give me a second, I'm going to flip my computer. Sorry about that. We are going to pull down our, oh no, 1. We're going to multiply 1 times 1, which again should be 1. Add these guys here. We will have 3. Multiply 1 times 3. That'll give me 3 right here. Add negative 19 to 3. That should give me negative 16. 1 times negative 16 is negative 16. Add these two together, I get negative 36. So because this last number was not 0, 1 is not a possible 0. So if it's a possible 0 or a possible x-intercept, this last number when we're doing our substitution division is going to be equal to 0. If it's not equal to 0, not an x-intercept. So you can see that depending on how unlucky you are with choosing your intercepts, you could be doing this for quite a while, which is why we call this a long way. So let's keep going. So I started with positive 1. I'm now going to do negative 1. So now I'm going to say, okay, maybe it's not x minus 1, maybe it's x plus 1. If I'm saying it's x plus 1, a equals negative 1. So once again, let's do substitution division. 1, 2, negative 19, negative 20. Pull my 1 down. 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Add these together. 2 plus negative 1, 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Negative 19 plus negative 1 is negative 20. Negative 1 times negative 20 is positive 20. Negative 20 plus positive 20 is 0. That means that this equals 0. So A equals negative 1 is correct. Negative 1 is one of our zeros. Cool? So we got kind of lucky there, the second one we tried. But if we had gone in a different order, we may have done this 5 times or 6 times before getting our right zeros. So this can be kind of lengthy. But we didn't do that, thankfully. So let's resolve this and keep going. So now we know that one of our zeros is x equals negative 1, which means that I can pull out x plus 1 from this polynomial. Remember, once again, when I pull out x plus 1, I'm going to have to divide our original polynomial by that to see what's left over and see if I can factor that so I don't have to do this finding zeros again, right? So I pull out x plus 1. So once again, I guess I shouldn't have deleted that, should I? So luckily, I still have it written down what our answers were. So we had negative 1. We pulled down our 1 to negative 19, negative 20. We had 1, negative 1, negative 1. Oops. Positive 1, negative 20, positive 20, and 0. So remember that these become the coefficients for our new factor. So we're going to have x plus 1 times 1x squared plus 1x minus 20. Now, the beautiful thing about this one is that I see that we have a nice factor with a coefficient of 1 right now, and I have 20, which has a factor of 4 times 5, which, when 4 and 5 are added together, gives me a 1, which is my middle number. So this is actually a really easy thing to factor. So we're not going to have to guess and check any more zeros. We're just going to factor x squared plus x minus 20 out to find our other two zeros. So in this case, we're going to have an x here, an x here. My 20 is negative, but my x is positive. So to get a negative 20, I have to have a positive and a negative. Remember that the only way to get a negative number when multiplying is to multiply a positive times a negative. If I multiply a positive times a positive, it's positive. Negative times negative is negative. So I know that one's going to be plus, one's going to be minus. And I have this x in the middle here. It's positive. That means that my larger one is going to be positive, and my smaller one is going to be negative. So I have a 4 here and a 5 here. So we should simplify out to x squared, check, minus 4x plus 5x, which comes down to plus x, and then minus 20, 5 times negative 4. So this is my factored out formula. So x cubed plus 2x squared minus 19x became x plus 1 times x plus 5 times x plus 4. And my zeros are x equals negative 1, negative 5, and 4. Now note that this is a pretty simple one because we had this lovely coefficient of 1 as our leading coefficient. We could have had some really nasty stuff if we had gotten into roots or zeros that have kind of crazy fractions. And next lesson in 7.2, we're actually going to get into stuff that's even like crazier than fractions because we're going to get into irrational numbers and even non-real numbers. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in.